Ladies and gentlemen, to recognize our 2016 HBA Woman of the Year, please welcome CEO, Genentech, a member of the Roche Group, Ian Clark.
Well, good afternoon. We're almost there. I suspect, like a lot of you, I get to do a lot of presentations, and many of them, as you prepare for them, you think, oh God, I'm not really going to enjoy this. This is not one of them. So it's really great to be up here to introduce Jennifer Cook as Woman of the Year. It was a phrase I thought I'd almost certainly utter at one point. Oh, by the way, they've given me 4 minutes, so I'm going to have to get on with this. They're going to count me down up here. I've used half a minute already. Right. Where do I start? Jennifer, what I really want to explain is why I think this is an incredibly well-deserved reward. But before I do that, I do want to note that she comes from quite the heritage. Jennifer is the third woman to win the Woman of the Year from Genentech. The first one was Myrtle Potter back in the day. 2000, I think Myrtle won. She actually hired me originally. So I have a lot to thank Myrtle for. And then the second one was Dr. Sue Hellman in 2006, who can't be here because she's got the small matter of running the Gates Foundation these days on her hands. So I've got 4 reasons why I think Jennifer is so deserving. I want to start off with describing what she does today. She's worked for me on 3 different occasions, but not today because now she runs our business in Europe. And to give you some sense of the scale of that job, it's a huge area from Finland down to Greece and from, I don't know, Portugal to Romania. I think she's got 6,000 staff, $9 billion worth of turnover, 28 countries. We include Israel in that for some reason. Maybe not so obvious. So that's her job. And she went into it in late 2012, early 2013. And if you recall, at that particular point, Europe was just about scrabbling out of recession. And the answer to the recession and the deficits in many countries was austerity. And in most of Europe, you have welfare, national health governments, and that was lack of money. So it was a really tough time to go into Europe. Plus, she was an American woman, and, excuse me, gentlemen, quite a lot of the general managers in Europe were men. So it was a tough dynamic. And here we are 3 years later. The sales are growing, there's a clear strategy, and motivation levels are up. And I think in some ways that's sort of a word picture which says everything about her leadership. In 3 years, she delivered. So there are 4 things that I think makes her deserving. 1 is the fact she delivers. 2, she gets our industry. 3, she's an incredible leader. And 4, her sponsorship of women. So let me talk about getting our industry. Jennifer first joined Genentech in the lab. She's both, I think, an undergrad and a master's in biology from Stanford, and she joined the lab. She then had a change of direction. She went to Berkeley, got her MBA, and then came back to Genentech. So she's one of those rare people, I think, who get both the science and innovation and the business part of our industry. And to some extent, it's the nexus of that, I think, which is the heart and soul of the industry. And she really gets it. So she delivers, she gets our industry. She is a fantastic leader. When I think about leaders who are good, maybe you can divide them into 2 categories. Some succeed to some extent because of their deep knowledge and what they do and how they succeed. Others succeed just because of pure great leadership. Now, I'd say in many ways Jennifer has both, but I've certainly seen her go into roles where at the get-go she is not a content expert. But it works, and it works from the very beginning, and the reason it works is because of leadership. She always pays attention to all aspects of that in terms of the team, culture, developing people, and that brings it all together. I have frequently seen people move teams, even if it's a lateral move, just so they can work for Jennifer. And that doesn't always happen. And I always think when it's a test of leadership, if you have a vacancy and there's a line around the block, then it's a strong leader. If you have a vacancy and there's no applications, well, you should be thinking about that. She's never short of applications. And then finally, she's been a great advocate for women. I'm very proud to tell you that these days at Genentech in our US business, we have 50% men and women, all the way up to and including the vice president level. It's been a journey. I'm glad to say it's not been a 117-year journey, so it can be done. But back in the day, that was not the case. We had a few senior women leaders. Jennifer was one of them, and she really was a shining light. And even from then, she was generous with her time as an advocate, as a sponsor, as a supporter, and part of the way we progressed. And I say generous with her time, that's both inside and outside of Genentech. And I've frequently watched women who at one point in their career were regarded as maybe sort of solid performers, getting close to some sort of ceiling. They end up working for Jennifer, and 2 years later, they're seen as high potentials and succession candidates. And I think that's, that shows you that she gets something about people. So those are the women in particular. Those are the 4 reasons why I think she's so deserving. She's, of course, managed all of that while she's raised a family. And she's here today with her husband, Mike, and her 2 boys, Jackson and Sam, who are over in the sort of dark corner over here. So I went. And then just before I welcome to the stage, 2 final comments. She does all this, and she's an extremely nice person as well, right? I'm proud to call her my friend. And many people who are great leaders, you respect them, but they're not necessarily likable. You know what I mean? Well, she is. She's very likable, which is lovely. And the other thing is she's got an incredible sense of right and wrong. She has very high levels of integrity. Countless times I've been in a room with Jennifer, and I look at it, I can see her squinting slightly. And I know exactly what she's thinking. Is this the right way of doing things? Are we doing this to help patients, or are we not? So it's that level of integrity which I think is essential to what she does. I also think it's something that our industry desperately needs right now. So I think we're going to run a video and then welcome to the stage a leader that our industry needs. Thank you very much indeed.
Jennifer is actually a 21st century leader. And what I mean by that is she's evolved even beyond, I think, where she would acknowledge because of her humility. And the experience that creates is that people want to follow her, or I guess put in a more egalitarian way, want to be on the journey with her.
One of the most striking things that I found about Jennifer is that she would attract a lot of smart and talented people, and she would create a space in which they would work really well together and then achieve something great.
Jennifer is about, in my mind, and the massive amount of impact that she's had on the organization is that she creates leaders in the way that she is a role model, in the way that she interacts with you, with her open communication that allows you to express yourself, and the way that she inspires you even from afar.
When I think of the complete leader, I think of somebody who understands that the business gets done through real people, and real people who have real lives, not just their work life, but their family, their friends, their other interests that energize them. And Jennifer just exemplifies that. You knew that her family was really important to her. She wasn't afraid to talk about that. And she just made all of us want to be not only better leaders, but honestly, better women and better people.
There's no one to me that better defines what the HBA looks for in terms of a Woman of the Year than someone who can really look back and say that she's changed the course of a company, that she's had an impact on the future of our industry, and has frankly touched the lives of hundreds of women and men at all levels of leadership.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 2016 HBA Woman of the Year, Jennifer Cook.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Thank you, Ian. That was very kind. Ian is a man of few words. He's known for that. So that was some very generous verbiage. And it really means a lot to me. I also want to thank my friends and colleagues, amazing people that are with us today, that are watching from there, and that have been with me for many, many years before, so I want to thank them. And I truly want to thank my family, who are here today as well, and without whom none of this would be possible. Most importantly as well, I want to thank Lori and the HBA for this amazing recognition, for this amazing organization, and all that you have done to support leaders like me and other leaders in this room. Thank you so much. Well, I am humbled and honored to be here today. And I need water. This happens. There's this German word for verklempt. Okay. In preparing to talk to you all today, though, I thought a lot about how I got here and what I learned along the way that perhaps made it possible. So how did it happen? I want to share with you my story of how, as an introverted, self-critical perfectionist, I found the nerve to entrust and empower others by getting comfortable in my own skin. How a belief in the unique value of every individual has allowed me to practice inclusion, which I believe can help close this gender parity gap. And how all of my experience has helped me to embrace the unpredictable ride that comes with leading by letting go. The thread that ran through all of these experiences and lessons was clear to me. Bravery or courage has mattered at every step. When I was growing up, I was shy and very studious and, quite frankly, insecure. I've always had a strong regard for authority and was very willing to follow instructions, trusting that people in charge must know best. It took me a long time to accept that my ideas were valid too. And not only valid, sometimes even better. An experience in a training course that I had when I was first managing people helped me to begin to see that this simple approach to authority might not be best. So it was a simulation. You may have done something like this. You are stranded in the desert with a set of supplies. This happens to us all the time. You have to decide on your own, and then as a team, what choices to make. So the list of supplies includes things like a bottle of water, salt tablets, a parachute, and you decide what to do. So I happen to have learned that if you have water, put it in your body. It doesn't help you to carry it. Drink it. Salt tablets, no. Salt actually just makes you more thirsty. Not a good idea. That's not an acute need. Now a parachute, okay, shade, you can catch rain. So I had my ideas and I dutifully filled in my form. Now, I had a teammate in my group who had served in the military, and he was a very forceful person. When we started the group discussion, he completely dominated, and he was very clear about what we needed to do. So I was sitting there thinking, well, he must know what to do. He's been in the military. He's been trained in this stuff. So he knows. So I made a couple suggestions. I got knocked down, and I just figured, that's okay. Others know more. When the coach tallied up our scores, though, guess what? We died in the desert. as a group, but I would have survived by myself. This was not a good outcome. So, in the debrief of that exercise, the coach helped me to understand that by withholding what I thought, I was actually harming the team. Now, that was such a good way to reframe this for me, to get over my reticence to speak and see it as possibly depriving others of benefit. I had to have the courage to stand up to a louder voice, an authoritative voice, because my voice was equally, if not more, valuable in that moment. This was an early lesson that I had to build on to gradually gain comfort speaking up, exposing myself to the risk of being wrong and being found out. Because this was one of my deep-seated discomforts. Like many high achievers I've known, I thought I had to be perfect. I had to be right if I was going to open my mouth. But once my jobs got bigger than anything I could handle alone, once I was managing other people and physically could not do all the work myself, I hit a limit, and I just thought, what if I say I don't know? Letting people see that I wasn't perfect and that I didn't have all the answers meant being more vulnerable. And how could I lead if I was vulnerable? Well, I've learned that perfect is not only impossible, it isn't even interesting. Think about this. Isn't one of the most commonly asked questions of leaders, what was your biggest mistake? That's what's interesting. People want to know that. So as I built the courage to admit shortcomings, to ask for help, and laugh about mistakes, people around me became much more comfortable with me. I became more approachable. My willingness to be vulnerable was an invitation and a welcome one. By admitting to not having the answer, I could turn my focus outwards and invite other people into the conversation. So why does this involve bravery? And why is it worth taking that risk? This feels risky because it defies the iconic image of a leader as the front of the room person who has all the answers. But in fact, it allows other people to feel valuable and to deliver value. They like being asked. They have great answers. So a good example of this happened when I came into a leadership role of a group of about 100 people some number of years ago. And I learned that that team was working in silos, they had low morale, and they had big expectations of me to fix things. Now it hit me as I addressed them at our first offsite meeting to get together, and I said, there's one of me, and there are 100 of you. I can do the very best with what's in my head, but in the end, I'm only one person. Together, we could be 100-fold stronger. Don't you think this will go better if you help me figure it out? And that's what we did. By being vulnerable myself, I opened the door to risk-taking in others. We worked together to identify problem areas, we formed working groups to solve them, and people volunteered for these working groups according to their interests. Together, we drove a whole new direction for that team over the next few years, such that we became highly integrated. We were much more supportive, and we produced better results. It was my growing realization that I could let go of perfection that actually allowed me to let go of control. Because that's what the perfectionism was about, a, by the way, hopeless desire for control. This was an evolution for me from learning that I thought I had to do everything, but worrying I would fail, instead to learning to invite others to contribute, to be comfortable being just one part of the journey and not taking it all on myself. So it's been my intention throughout my career to have the courage to just be myself. Sometimes that's created risk for me. What if I don't get the position because my authentic self isn't good enough? But to me, being brave is about being genuine and showing your true self. One of the greatest compliments I got once was from someone I used to manage, whom I saw years later, and he said, you're still just the same. I love that. That's what I was looking for. I encourage all of you to consider whether you are working on being someone others think you should be, or whether you're committed to being your best self. Do you have the courage to look in the mirror and say, this is who I am? Can you say it to others? I've always thought I can only be me. And as Oscar Wilde said, everyone else is already taken. So this takes us to a core focus of mine, which is the value of the individual. When I first managed a group of 600 people, a sales and marketing team in the US, I was overwhelmed at the thought of leading so many. I felt distanced from what felt like a nameless crowd. But over time, as I met the team and I got to know those people one by one, that crowd of 600 strangers became a group of colleagues, real people with real talents that I could appreciate and connect with. The same has happened as I've managed Europe for Roche, those 28 countries and 6,000 people. I've gone to each country and spent time with those teams. I was with the Israel team at their league basketball tournament, cheering with their families. I walked through Prague on a freezing night with the management team, just sharing stories about our kids. Over time, by connecting with individuals about the business and about their lives, the barriers for all of us have come down. And in valuing the individual and having a real curiosity about what matters to people, I've learned the meaning of inclusion. This takes us beyond the concept of diversity that's been emphasized now for years, because diversity is about differences. And differences alone make us uncomfortable. 6 years ago, I interviewed a talented African-American woman for a leadership job on my team, and she said something that really challenged me. She had an observation. She said, I look around and I look up in this company and I don't see people who look like me. I realized then that as leaders, we are seeking diversity because we know that it's good for the business. But as individuals, we are seeking affinity. I've been the only woman leader on multiple leadership teams, and while I became used to it, I wouldn't really say that it was my preference to be the only one of anything on a team of people. And I would guess that every one of you has at some time in your life felt what it is to be different. Now, is that feeling of being set apart something you'd want to intentionally inflict on other people? So inclusion adds a whole new element here that invites every individual to participate. If you are genuinely interested in the contributions of each person without a label, if you are asking for their input and listening to their ideas, you create an environment where the differences are not the focus. The comfort to contribute is. By pushing only for diversity, we are fighting against strong natural tendencies to choose what's familiar and asking people instead to accept being uncomfortable because someone tells them it's the right thing to do. Now, after 15 years of managing people, I've come to a few pragmatic conclusions, and one of them is don't expect people to work against their own comfort in any sustained way. They can't do it, and they won't do it. As I said before, it takes courage to be yourself. It is inclusion that lowers barriers and enables people to bring that best self forward. There's another important aspect to this that relates clearly to our focus here on achieving gender parity. I believe inclusive behavior is crucial to speeding up progress there as well. Any behavior that singles out one group and excludes another runs the risk of being divisive. Instead, we need a positive alternative. And inclusion is a rising tide that lifts all boats. Now, these courage milestones that I've mentioned, breaking through my fear of failure, learning to let go of control, and counting on the value of others, bring me to the way that I try to lead. Too much of management still seems to be based on a command and control top-down approach that's probably more suitable to an assembly line. This style can be seen as strong or even brave by some, but I don't agree. Our work is dynamic. Our world is fast-moving and full of ambiguity. We need every one of our employees to be problem solvers in their own domain. We all got the memo to hire the best and the brightest, but once those people are through the door, many managers still proceed to tell them what to do. I believe people do their best work because they want to, not because we tell them to. And the more talented they are, the more we will get from asking them what they think. So as a leader, I try to create an environment where people can be inspired, valued, and included so they will want to bring their best. Even in a region as large as Europe with so many differences and a broad array of business challenges and opportunities, this approach has resulted in strong business results with increasing growth every year. I'm convinced the two are related. We all know that extra mile is run out of desire. When I think about the hurdles that we face as a healthcare industry, I am convinced we have many extra miles to go. I've been in healthcare for my entire 30-year career, and I am proud of the work I've been able to do in the service of patients. I've been inspired for decades by the passion and commitment of my colleagues who are driven by the mission to improve patients' lives. Yet our industry's reputation has plummeted, and the common understanding of what we do is far from the truth, influenced by a handful of highly visible bad acts. But if I take the concept that I've spoken about with you today, the value of every individual as a unique problem solver, I would ask that every one of us do what we can do to bring healthcare's reputation and value back on track. Every one of us is a face to the public. Every one of us is an ambassador for the work that we do for patients. All 2,500 people in this room and watching remotely from multiple disciplines in the field. Imagine what we will accomplish if every one of us is running that extra mile, bringing their best self forward, and encouraging our colleagues to do the same. So in closing, I'll ask you this question inspired from a Sarah Bareilles song. How big is your brave? Are you brave enough to choose to be yourself, not what someone defines for you as success? Do you have the courage to be curious about who your colleagues really are, what motivates them, to invite them to share more and do more? Are you ready to take the bold step to embrace the confidence you have earned to make it all possible? How big is your brave? Thank you very much.